The movie follows the story of a young ballerina who gets abducted by 6 criminals in exchange for a $50 million ransom. However, these criminals soon find themselves in a dilemma after realizing whose daughter she is. Hey guys, welcome back to I Am Movies. Today we're looking into the 2024 American horror comedy film titled Abigail. But before we jump into the details, be aware there are spoilers. Now let's get right into it. The movie begins in New York with the 6 criminals preparing to kidnap a young girl. The criminals are compiled of a thrill-seeking hacker, an ex-Navy SEAL sniper, a sociopath diver, an ex-NYPD detective, an ex-Army medic, and a dim-witted mobster prepared to carry out an abduction. Soon, the ex-Army medic, ex-NYPD detective, and the mobster break into the house. On getting in, the Army medic realizes that they are about to abduct a kid, and she immediately confronts the ex-NYPD detective, who happens to be the leader of the gang, but realizes it's too late to turn back. As soon as the victim, Abigail, returns from her dancing class and settles into her room, the ex-NYPD detective quickly holds her down. However, Abigail tries to fight back, but the ex-Army medic manages to inject Abigail with a sedative, putting her to sleep. At the same time, the hacker warns them over the comms about the presence of some men, and they quickly put Abigail in a bag. With this, they decide to use the back door. Soon, the alarm system of the house goes off, and they quickly escape into their van. Later that night, they arrive at a mansion in the woods right on the outskirts of town. Upon arrival, they meet a man whom the leader refers to as the boss. Shortly after, the boss introduces himself as Lambert and begins to address the crew who appear to be working together for the first time. Lambert tells them that they all came highly recommended and instructs them not to reveal their real names or personal info to each other. Lambert further instructs them that the ex-Army medic is the only person allowed to see or talk to Abigail. The ex-Army medic asks Lambert who the girl is. Lambert refuses to say, but reveals that her father is a wealthy man who will pay them $50 million in ransom. Shortly after, Lambert instructs them to hand over their cell phones in order to make sure that they are not being tracked. Afterward, the mobster asks Lambert why they can't use their real names, and the ex-NYPD detective tells him that it's to safeguard the rest in case any of them get caught. Following this, Lambert decides to give them fake names. First, he names the ex-NYPD detective as Frank, the sociopath driver as Dean, the thrill-seeking hacker as Sammy, the mobster as Peter, the ex-Army medic as Joey, and the ex-Navy SEAL sniper as Don Rickles. After this, Lambert tells the gang that he will see them again in 24 hours and leaves. Later, Joey goes to check on Abigail. As soon as Joey steps into the room, Abigail begins to cry and tells Joey that she wants to go home. Joey assures her that they'll all eventually go home, but not just yet. Soon, Abigail begs Joey to take the blindfold off her and also reveals that the cuff is hurting her. Feeling compassionate, Joey takes off the blindfold and also cuff her hands to the front to make her comfortable. Shortly after this, Abigail begins to cry, but Joey comforts her, stating that she will be free as soon as her father pays them. However, Abigail asks Joey if she knows who her father is, and Joey says she prefers not to know. Abigail tearfully asks Joey if they will hurt her, and Joey promises never to let that happen as long as she behaves herself. Following this, Abigail goes ahead to make Joey pinky promise not to let anyone hurt her. Later, Abigail then reveals to Joey that they've made a mistake because her father would never pay them, stating he doesn't care about her. Afterward, Abigail tells Joey that she's sorry about what's about to happen to her. Concerned, Joey confronts Frank about who Abigail's father is, revealing that the kid just implied that her father is dangerous. Frank reveals that he doesn't know her father, and adds that the kid might just be trying to rattle her. Curious, Frank later decides to find out who Abigail's father is. Thinking Abigail is still blindfolded, Frank sneaks into the room and he's shocked to see her looking at him. With this, Frank quickly covers his face and begins to threaten Abigail with his gun, asking her for the color of his eye in an attempt to know if she really saw him. Frightened, Abigail tells Frank that she didn't see his face, and he proceeds to ask her who her father is. Frank is however left shaken as soon as he learns that her father is Christophe Lazare, a powerful, almost mythical crime lord. Upon hearing this, Frank suddenly announces that he quits and decides to leave, but Joey stops him and demands that he give them a reason. Frank tells them that they are in a mess, revealing that Abigail's father, Christophe Lazare, is the biggest and most brutal crime boss in the world. Following this revelation, Sammy suggests that they hand Abigail back to her father and then apologize. However, Frank deems it a stupid thing to do. Joey, on the other hand, suggests that they just leave Abigail with some food and then make an anonymous call to her father to come get her, since the girl hasn't seen any of their faces. However, Frank objects to it, stating that Abigail has seen his face. Peter suggests that they kill Abigail, but Joey warns them not to even think about it. Moments later, Frank suggests that they all just pretend like they do not know who Abigail's father is, and just disappear to start a new life as soon as they get paid. With this, Frank urges them to secure the building and stay alert to face any incoming threat. Frank asks Don Rickles to be on the lookout and instructs Joey to secure the interior of the building for any entry point. Later, Sammy gets startled by Dean, who had sneaked into her room trying to flirt with her, but she angrily sends him away. After leaving Sammy's room, Dean wanders off into the basement where he soon gets attacked and dragged away by an unknown figure. Sammy hears his screams and goes to look for him in the basement. After searching for a while, Sammy finds Dean's decapitated body, and she screams with shock. At the same time, Peter also hears her scream and rushes to check on her, only to see the horrifying sight of Dean's headless body. Soon they all gather to discuss the circumstances surrounding Dean's death. At this point, Joey suggests that Lazar's most brutal hitman, Valdez, could be responsible, stating that it is his signature method of killing. Don Rickles adds that 15 FBI agents securing 3 of Lazar's top lieutenants a day to their prosecution were once found ripped apart the next day. Following this disturbing revelation, they all decide to check on Abigail. While on their way, Frank reveals that there is no way Valdez could have gotten in, except Lambert ratted out their location to him. Joey also suggests that one of them could even be Valdez, and they all begin to get suspicious at themselves. However, they find Abigail in the room quietly sitting on the bed. At this point, Rickles announces that he is quitting, and decides to leave. On getting to the door, he finds it sealed, and they soon begin to try opening it. After several failed attempts, the home security system activates, and the house gets locked down. With this, they realize they have been trapped, and Rickles quickly rushes to get his rifle, but he soon realizes that it's gone. At the same time, Joey goes to check on Abigail, and asks her if anyone else has been in the room. Abigail begins to panic, stating that he will hurt her if she speaks. Joey promises to protect her, and Abigail tells her that Frank had told her that he works for her father, and that his name is Valdez. Shortly after, Joey tells Rickles that Frank is Valdez, but he doesn't believe it, stating that Frank wouldn't have kidnapped Abigail if he worked for Lazar. However, Joey tells him that it could be a planned power play between Lambert and Valdez. Confused, the two decide to team up and find a way out since they are both trained military professionals. Don Rickles suggests that they both go separate ways to find a way out, and then meet again in the middle. However, as soon as Rickles leaves to go find a way out, he gets mutilated and killed while standing, leaving Joey in shock. Joey immediately goes to confront Frank with her gun, accusing him of being Valdez. Confused, Frank also points his gun at her, and then reveals that he didn't tell Abigail anything, stating that the girl is only trying to turn them against each other. At this point, Frank goes ahead to suggest that they kill Abigail, and orders Peter to go do it. Joey goes after Peter and stops him from shooting Abigail, threatening to kill him if he makes another move. Frank steps in shortly after, and they soon begin to argue. At the same time, Abigail effortlessly removes the cuffs from her hands, and to everyone's surprise, she transforms into a vampire. She immediately attacks Peter, but Frank manages to shoot her dead before she can bite him. However, it appears that a bullet is not enough to put her down as she revives and swiftly heals herself. Upon seeing this, they all flee as Joey opens fire on Abigail, but the bullet has no effect on her. However, Frank manages to lock her in the room, and they all soon realize that they are in a big mess and that Abigail is the famed Valdez. After realizing that there is no way out of the building, they begin to brainstorm on how to kill a vampire. They resort to using daylight as a weapon. However, seeing that it is 3:30 a.m., Frank instructs Peter to go sharpen pool cues into steaks, and also orders Sammy to go get garlic in the kitchen. However, Joey reveals that they are not strong enough to kill Abigail, but suggests that they use her as a bargaining chip for Lazar to spare their lives. Shortly after, Peter returns with the steaks as they prepare to go kill Abigail, but Joey refuses to go with them. With this, the three head to the room, but they find it empty. Soon they hear music playing upstairs, and as they go to check it out, they find Abigail dancing ballet with Dean's headless body. Sammy angrily attacks her with the garlic and steak, but Abigail knocks her down, repeatedly punching her in the chest. Frank tries to intervene, but Abigail lands him a strong punch. However, Peter manages to pull Abigail up, but she soon knocks him down and uses his cross pendant to repeatedly stab him in the chest, causing him to bleed profusely. Frank once again attempts to stab Abigail with the stake, but she overpowers him and drives it into his leg. With this, the three decide to retreat and leave the room as Abigail mockingly giggles at them. As they return downstairs, Joey tends to Frank's wounded leg and then reveals to them that the only thing that can work on Abigail is a sedative. With this, they agree to split up, and anyone who finds Abigail first will have to alert the others. While searching for Abigail, Sammy gets startled by a bird, and she begins to scream as she falls into a pool filled with dead bodies. At the same time, Abigail appears to Peter, and he begins to scream for help as she chases him down a hallway. After a while, Peter manages to lock her off, but she effortlessly breaks the door down and chases him down the stairs. However, Peter soon gets accidentally knocked down by Frank, who appears to be coming to his aid. Shortly after, Abigail goes after Frank and pushes him down the stairs, mounts on him. She then grabs his neck, and asks him to tell her the color of her eyes just like he did to her earlier. At the same time, Joey attempts to inject Abigail with the sedative, but she hits it away, causing it to fall behind a metal door. However, as Abigail continues to choke Frank, Sammy goes to his aid, but Abigail bites her. As Joey struggles to retrieve the sedative, Abigail pulls Frank by the leg and begins to levitate, but Peter manages to push her down and then pin her to the ground. Joey finally grabs the sedative, and she injects Abigail, eventually putting her to sleep. At the same time, Sammy begins to panic as she angrily asks what they think might happen to her, but none of them knows. Moments later, Abigail regains consciousness and finds herself locked up in an elevator. Joey offers to let her go if she tells them how to get out of the building, but she refuses. At the same time, Sammy asks if she'll turn into a vampire, and Abigail tells her maybe. Soon, Abigail reveals to them that she is the mastermind behind everything, and that she brought them together to kill them, revealing that Lambert works for her. With this, Abigail reveals Sammy's real name as Jessica Herney, telling them how she siphoned her rich parents' money to offshore accounts and then eventually stole from Lazar. Abigail turns to Peter and reveals his real name as Terrence Lacroix, an assassin who stole money from a crime family he works for in Montreal, revealing that the family is a subsidiary of Lazar's criminal empire. She then turns to Frank, revealing him as former detective Adam Barrett, who infiltrated her father's New York crime business under deep cover. It appears that Frank was responsible for the arrest of Lazar's top 3 lieutenants. Finally, Abigail turns to Joey and reveals her name as Ana Lucia Cruz, an ex-army medic who went rogue to work for some shady people. However, she caused the death of someone who happens to be very important to Lazar and then disappeared after abandoning her son. Afterward, Abigail decides to play with their minds by promising to let the first 2 people who set her free to go and live. Shortly after, she tells them that her offer has expired and reveals that only the person who lets her out will live. Peter attempts to take the offer, but Joey shoots him in the stomach and collects his gun in exchange for immediate treatment. Soon, they leave Frank to watch Abigail, as Joey goes to treat Peter. Later, Frank seals a deal with Abigail to open the door for her, in exchange for a way out. With this, Abigail tells him about a secret door in the library that leads out of the house, but he only locks the door more and mocks her for being gullible. Afterward, Abigail begins to laugh and she soon kicks the door open. As she attempts to kill Frank, Joey breaks a wall open, and Abigail gets struck by daylight, causing her to lose her hand. Joey and Frank escape to the library, and Abigail screams as she heals up. Inside the library, Sammy tests to see if she is now a vampire, and she feels relieved after realizing sunlight doesn't hurt her. Frank gets frustrated after realizing that Abigail had lied to him about the secret door. Later, they agree to team up in 2 to find the control room. Peter offers to go with Sammy while Frank and Joey team up. Moments later, Sammy's wound heals up, and she soon begins to hear Abigail's voice calling out to her. Soon, Abigail takes control of Sammy's body, and eventually makes her kill Peter. Afterward, Abigail makes Sammy call for Frank and Joey, and also makes her dance ballet. As soon as they arrive at the spot, they notice Sammy's unusual behavior, and they run for their lives as she chases them to the library. Sammy proceeds to attack them, but Joey manages to kill her with the reflection of sunlight. Shortly after, a secret door opens, and they soon find Lambert, who happens to be a vampire in the hidden control room. Lambert pins Joey to the wall and offers to turn Frank into a vampire if he agrees to join forces with him to kill Abigail and her father. Frank takes the offer, and Lambert bites Frank to turn him. Shortly after, Lambert offers Joey to Frank as his first kill, but instead Frank stabs him with the stake. Feeling empowered, Frank begins to threaten to kill Joey, but Abigail appears and soon launches an attack on him. Frank manages to overpower her and then drains part of her blood to weaken her. Meanwhile, Joey picks up her phone and then runs away. Soon, Joey finds herself at a dead end, and she decides to send a last-minute apology voicemail to her son. At the same time, Frank begins to attack her, using his super strength to launch her into the upper part of the library. Afterward, Frank launches Joey to the ground, but Abigail manages to save her. With this, Abigail reveals that she's now too weak to fight Frank alone, and then offers to let Joey live if she helps her kill him. With this, they both team up to fight Frank, but he seems stronger. Frank manages to knock Abigail down and then nail Joey to the wall with a stake. As Frank fights Abigail, he continues to drain her blood. Soon he pulls Joey out and then bites her in an attempt to use her as a puppet, just as Abigail did to Sammy. As soon as Joey recovers, Frank gives her a stake and commands her to kill Abigail, but she attacks him instead. Frank hits Joey, but Abigail attacks him again and manages to eventually knock him down. As Abigail attempts to stab his heart with the stake, but he manages to stop her. With this, Joey joins Abigail, and they eventually push the stake into his heart. Abigail thanks Joey and assures her that she will not turn into a vampire since Frank is now dead. As Joey leaves, Abigail encourages her to show up for her son, but Lazar appears behind her. Abigail begs Lazar not to hurt Joey, revealing that Joey saved her life. With this, Lazar decides to let Joey leave, and she happily walks out as the only survivor, smiling as she takes her last candy and drives off. And this is where our story ends. If you'd like to see us recap any other movies or topics you have in mind, just drop a comment and let us know. And don't forget to hit the like button, share this recap, and subscribe to stay updated for the next one. Until next time.